Welcome back, Trinidad and Tobago. Well, World Refugee Day is recognized on June 20th. Here to tell us all about what we can expect and how important this particular day is, we have Ruben Barbado, representative of the UNHCR. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
What is World Refugee Day all about?
Well, World Refugee Day is the day when we celebrate and we commemorate all the efforts, the resilience, the suffering, but also the joy that refugees have gone through in order to find better lives. It's a moment of remembering. It's a moment of also showing commitment, and it's a moment also to look to ourselves, what we can do as individuals and also as countries to help those who have been forced to flee their homes forcibly.
Yeah, and in Trinidad and Tobago, have we really been a sensitive people to our refugees?
In general terms, I would say yes. I mean, Trinidad and Tobago, as you know much better than myself, this is a diverse country, multicultural country, multi-ethnic country, and a lot of people have been showing a lot of solidarity to those who have been in need. You might remember, or you might not know, but during World War II, Trinidad and Tobago received Jewish refugees at the time fleeing persecution from Nazi Germany, and in more recent times also from the Caribbean and the rest of the region. Currently, there are more people from more than 20 different countries who are trying to recover and rebuild their lives in Trinidad and Tobago, and it's something that in that regards needs to be supported and recognized, because many people don't know why people might be here, and many people don't know either how these people can be helped.
Yes. And how is this particular day commemorated in Trinidad and Tobago and in the wider world? What are some of the activities?
Mm-hmm. Well, in Trinidad and Tobago on 20th of June, we have a panel discussion at the University of West Indies.
Mm-hmm.
With different actors where we were explaining the situation of refugees and asylum seekers here in the country. And this Saturday is going to be a film screening by Human Flow by IYY. It's going to be at the auditorium of the Attorney General's office in Richmond Street at 5:30 p.m. There's a free screening, so anybody interested can go and learn about the situation of people who have to flee.
Yes. What has your involvement been in the UNHCR? How did you get involved in all of this?
Well, to begin with, the UNHCR is the UN Refugee Agency, which we are mandated to support those people who are fleeing, who are the refugees, the asylum seekers, who are the people in the process of becoming refugees, stateless persons, who are the persons who don't have nationality, and also those who are even sometimes people who are displaced in their own country but they are not refugees yet. I'm personally involved because you never know what can happen to you. My country, I'm from Spain, suffered a civil war in the 30s. Many people have to flee at the time. You see here in Trinidad and Tobago, you almost have a coup d'etat in 1990. And you see what's happening around. I think it's important then to relate to that. I mean, me personally, as a lawyer, I got my first contact with refugees was when I was in my hometown with an old couple that were about to be resettled to the US. They just passed by, and I learned that there was a reception center in my hometown, and I started volunteering there. And their story, their sufferance, knowing that they were really old, they were over 80 when they decided to leave everything in their own country and try to rebuild a new life somewhere else because they could not keep on living where they were. So, when you get in that situation that you need to leave everything behind and try to start a new life, I think you need to be very courageous, and you have thought through a lot in order to take that decision. And you see that as the world is today, when we're seeing that, in 2017 we have the highest number of people displaced for several years on a row already. More than 68.5 million people have been displaced. 16 new million people have been displaced last year. Is really shaking and touching. Last year, it's like every 2 seconds a person was forcibly displaced. Every day, over 40,000 people have to flee their homes, and we're counting now that the number of people that are displaced currently overpass the population of France, which is near to 70 million people. So it's something that we need to remember in order to see why these people are living, because it's not a decision that is taken easily in order to find their own ways.
How important is the work that you have been doing here in Trinidad and Tobago? How important is it to us?
In that regard, we have to say that on the one hand, Trinidad and Tobago ratified acceded to the Refugee Convention in November 2000, but unfortunately there's no legislation yet. A refugee policy was adopted by Cabinet in 2014, which is a policy which is quite comprehensive in order for the government to take over the responsibilities that nowadays we are doing UNHCR in collaboration with civil organizations like Living Water Community and others in the country, etc., in order to take over the responsibilities and decide which are the rights and obligations of people. In the absence of that legislation being in place, we find that the refugees and the asylum seekers who are in the country, they are allowed to stay, but they cannot access to education, they cannot access to legal employment. They have a lot of difficulties to have access to health services, finding yourself in a situation which is very precarious, to say the least, and they are exposed to discrimination, they are exposed to exploitation, they're exposed to be victims of trafficking and people who take advantage of them. So in that regard, it's very important that, as we continue to work with the government, with the Ministry of National Security, the Office of the Attorney General, Immigration Division, and other institutions, that legislation is passed in order to be able to support these people and in order to grant them their rights, because at the end of the day, you want to contribute, they want to be part of the society. And in that regard, since well again, all the influences that Trinidad and Tobago has received from neighboring countries and beyond, there are possibilities here, and people come with two hands and a brain, so it's not just a matter of demanding services and all that. Yes. When the majority of the population that we have registered with us are young people able to work
skilled.
And skilled and
yes.
and all that, that's important. And at the end of the day, if they have the opportunity, they can contribute, they can pay taxes, they can be member of the society. I think what everybody wants, wouldn't you like that, you come to a country, your children can go to school, so it's like whatever anybody else would like.
Yes, most definitely. What are your thoughts on the influx of Venezuelan nationals to Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, Venezuela finds itself in a challenging situation right now. We need to remember that also Venezuela has been a country that has been extremely generous and supportive to other people in the world. As I said, starting by my own country, Venezuela received a lot of Spaniards from exile and after the Civil War. Venezuela as a country has been receiving from other dictatorships at the time in the region, from the Southern Cone, a lot of Colombians, and they still keep on having a lot of Colombians. And I find in a situation that a lot of people from Venezuela have to leave. So in that regard, we need to support those who are living in order to have a better life and to find ways for them to find their own ways through legal means in order until the situation improves. So in that regard, it's like we need to support them, but we don't need to forget that they are not the only ones here in Trinidad and Tobago. As I mentioned, we have people from more than 20 different countries to Trinidad and Tobago and 40 different countries to the broader Caribbean, because the region is not isolated anymore. You have people here that comes from countries as far as from Bangladesh or Sri Lanka, Nigeria, Uganda, but we keep on having people here from Cuba, from Colombia, in other parts of the region, Central America. So the reality is that you never know what can happen to you. And that's important that in that regard that's also recognized and understood. And I think by getting to know who these people are, we can work together in order to remove some of the prejudices, the stereotypes, and all these kind of circumstances that actually harm more than beyond making it good. And I think by knowing who they are and what the skills are, how they can contribute, we can all work together to make them better.
Certainly. What are your closing comments? And just remind us of that panel discussion scheduled to take place as well.
No, my final comments, if you allow me, is Trinidad and Tobago, it's been a responsible country in the region. It's a leading country in order to show the path of what the situation and the measures that could be taken on asylum seekers and refugees. It is important to acknowledge and recognize the suffering, but also the resilience that those who are coming here. When you flee your country, you're not doing it in a way that is something that you woke up and decided to do it in a light manner. So you need to one person needs to understand the effort and the suffering that's behind that decision. But at the end of the day, what I have seen in all the more than 9 years I'm working now with UNHCR is that people at the end of the day, are very strong, and they're able to, if you give them opportunity, people would rebuild their lives, and it's just a matter of to, give that little push to help them to continue with their lives. In the panel today at the UE, we expect to, to bring some clarity and promote the dialogue among the different actors. It was very interesting that there are a lot of students from the Faculty of Law talk, and they will be the proponents, so they will be the ones actually explaining about what the situation refugees, asylum seekers in the country are. And I think also to have better sense, those who are interested, definitely are invited to go to the film screening on this Saturday on the Human Flow.
Is there a number to call by any chance?
People here in the country to support us, we are working very closely with Living Water community.
Right.
And I think everybody knows here in Trinidad and Tobago, Living Waters community is the first point of contact on refugees and asylum seeker. In any case, as the agreement that we have with the authorities, if by any chance any authority come across with any person feeling persecution, the first contact as well should be referring to the refugee unit of the Immigration Division. And from there, for those who want to contribute, who want to volunteer, who want to support, definitely to get in contact with Living Water community while we get more involved in the more legal part of the process. But in terms of assistance and all that, definitely they are the first point.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us this morning. It's been a pleasure having you.
Likewise. Thank you very much for having me.
So, we've been chatting with Mr. Ruben Barbado, representative of the UNHCR. Well, stay tuned, a lot more when we return.